Chapter 1 Awakening Memory. You are listening at NovelsReturning. The streets full of lights and wine, the young ladies in cool clothes, the traffic lights beside the zebra crossing, the mud truck out of control, beeped at the sharp whistle pierced the dream, and Tao Yu woke up from his sleep with sweat all over his head, gasping for breath. A faint smell of mold and sweat entered his nose with his gasps, and Tao Yu gradually woke up. Here it comes again, it's this dream again. This dream that is so real that he can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Tao Yu, a social animal from the 21st century, or Tao Yu, a young man from the outer city who is about to turn 18 years old, makes him a little confused. Over the years, he occasionally had this dream, but as the awakening day represented by his 18th birthday approached, this dream became more and more frequent, and in the past month, he had closed his eyes. At first, he thought it was the pressure and hallucination caused by the arrival of the awakening day, but as more and more information and memory came, the systematic and completely self-consistent memory and knowledge also told him that these were all true. According to the novels in my memory in the dream, it should be reincarnation from another world. Recalling the peaceful, warm and beautiful world in my memory, I now look at the damp bed board made of bricks and wooden boards, look up at the stains on the asbestos wall, and the window made of cardboard. Tao Yu's expression was also a little dull. Through the hole in the cardboard of the window, looking at the darkness outside the window, listening to the wind in the dark, and the vague murmurs and vague whispers that came faintly, Tao Yu's mood became more complicated. An old oil lamp was placed at the head of the bed, and the soybean-sized flame had been emitting a hazy glow that illuminated the entire cabin, but all the light stopped at the window, as if it could not penetrate the window at all. The occasional jump of the flame made the shadow tremble in the room, as if it had come alive, and it seemed that this tiny flame could go out at any time. Is there really a peaceful world where everyone can eat meat? Tao Yu has lived in this world for 18 years. Recalling the memories of his previous life in his dreams, he felt as if he was in another world. Some things that he took for granted in his previous life are completely a luxury in this life. A luxury. Why not travel to that world from this world? With the various combat and survival skills that he has been practicing hard for the past 18 years, he can at least be a bodyguard son-in-law in the city of the 21st century. Abyss, the sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of everyone in this world, the end of the endless world. It has been unknown how many years since this world was targeted by the abyss. From Tao Yu's limited knowledge, through some words, he can understand that when the abyss just began to devour the world, the instinctive awakening of the worlds will give everyone in the world the power to fight against the abyss. Through the pioneers' continuous penetration into the fragments of the world and the cracks of the abyss, they seized the will to prolong the life of the world, which has continued until now. Tao Yu didn't know what had happened in the past few years, but the gray fog representing the invasion of the abyss had spread across the world, compressing the living areas of humans into cities and shelters. Most of the connections between cities were cut off, and they could only move forward with difficulty in the gray fog by relying on the lamp of will to illuminate the road, barely maintaining some increasingly rare exchanges. The fire of civilization that dispelled the gray fog in each city and the awakening day of everyone's 18th birthday seemed to be the last gift left by the world's will. Clucked up the faint crowing of a rooster came from the dark window, and it seemed that the darkness outside disappeared in an instant, and a gray light appeared. The crowing of a rooster also woke Tao Yu up from his meditation. Looking at the gray light outside the window, he couldn't help but sigh secretly, and then twisted the oil lamp covered with black oil stains on the bedside and extinguished the soybean-sized flame. There have been more and more disappearances in the outer city recently, and I don't know when it will end. I hope that today's awakening day can successfully awaken combat talents. According to my parents' talents, the best talent I can awaken should be dynamic vision. If the dynamic vision level can reach C or above, perhaps my identity can be changed. Wearing plastic-soled shoes with unknown black dirt, Tao Yu pushed open the old door and made a creaking sound. Outside was a living room with a similar style to the room. The walls of the living room were mainly made of asbestos boards and iron sheets. In the middle was a rusty table made of a tripod. The stools in the living room were also of different styles, as if they were made of various garbage materials, including wood, triangles, and metal. Coming to the side of the water tank, picking up the porcelain basin next to it, Tao Yu scooped a basin of water with an uneven aluminum alloy ladle. Looking at the thin and slightly pretty face in the reflection, Tao Yu felt a little complicated. He doesn't look bad, but he seems malnourished. The high frequency of dreams this month has made his thoughts increasingly connected with his past life, and he feels that his brain has become much smarter. Creaked that the same harsh sound of opening the door rang out, and a dark-skinned and capable woman came out of the room. When she saw Tao Yu, she smiled and showed her white teeth. "Yu, today is your awakening day, you should have a good rest, I will do the farm work." "Sister-in-law, I can't sleep." Tao Yu saw the woman nodded politely, and then reached out to wash his face. "Well, my parents will return at noon, and they should be able to bring you some useful weapons and equipment." The woman sighed, thinking that Tao Yu was too nervous, so she comforted him. "I'll get you something fresh, so you can eat it on the first day." "Thank you, sister-in-law." Tao Yu washed her face and thanked her. This is her third sister-in-law, but her eldest and second brothers died on the day of awakening, her fourth sister got married, her fifth brother died in the cannon fodder mission, and her sixth sister went crazy and was beaten to death by the security team. In addition to herself, there are only her parents, her third brother, her third sister-in-law, and her 16-year-old younger brother left at home. However, in order to reduce the priority of the cannon fodder quota and improve their own weight points, her parents should be considering giving birth to the ninth child recently, but I don't know if they can still give birth. Although because both of her parents have relatively stable jobs, she has been relatively stable since she was a child. But she has also been accustomed to life and death since she was a child. At the beginning of the Abyss invasion, the awakening of the worlds will give people the power to resist, and the Day of Awakening is an extremely important turning point for everyone. From the Day of Awakening, everyone in this world needs to spend a certain amount of time to go deep into the Abyss Rift to search for willpower to strengthen themselves, which is also considered to strengthen the world will to resist the invasion of the Abyss. Although it is not digitized and panelized, the world will allow individuals to understand their abilities more clearly after awakening, and can accelerate the strengthening through willpower, and awaken personal talents at the same time. Personal talents are all kinds of strange, most of which are not very helpful in combat, and have a considerable impact on the growth rate of individuals. Because of the problem of limited resources, personal talents that tend to fight are more likely to be cultivated by the company and obtain corresponding privileges and resources. For example, Tao Yu's father Tao Long has the talent of Eagle Eye, C+. Although it is of limited help in frontal combat, it still has certain advantages in scouts, snipers, and reconnaissance, so it can be considered that he has survived all these years. Mother Hong Xia has Agility, F. Agility is theoretically more suitable for combat than Eagle Eye, but the innate level is too low, only slightly better than the lowest F-. Although it is said that there are examples of talents being upgraded later in life, or even transformed or even having multiple talents, it is obvious that such things are impossible to happen in such an ordinary family, so the mother finally chose to marry the father, wanting to cultivate dynamic vision, a more suitable standard combat talent. At the same time, she chose a manufacturing skill to specialize in, and entered the leather factory with her ingenuity and became a senior skilled worker. Coupled with the weight of their frequent births, they have not been assigned cannon fodder tasks by the company over the years. Although individual talents are closely related to heredity, Tao Yu has so many brothers and sisters, that is, the third brother Tao Tong inherited the optimized talents of his parents and obtained dynamic vision, D+. In theory, his achievements should have been higher, and he even joined the company's security team for a time, but after losing both legs in a mission, everything came to an abrupt end. Whether it is items for regenerating broken limbs or mechanical prostheses that allow him to continue fighting, they are not something the family can afford. Fortunately, he was injured for the company's mission. In order to promote the company generously exempted him and his wife Li Li from the cannon fodder mission quota, and they no longer need to worry about the compulsory conscription of cannon fodder missions for the rest of their lives. Chapter 2: A Depressed World. You are listening at NovelsReturning. This world is simply terrible. Walking out of the house, breathing the morning air with a slight smell of cow dung, Tao Yu sighed again. I thought that the social animals in the previous life were already miserable, but when I think about the people in this world, I really feel speechless and look up at the sky. How did I survive in the past? Every day, I feed cows, clean cow dung, milk cows, repair cow hooves, and weed and do various farm work on the farm. All my spare time is spent practicing various survival and combat skills for the Day of Awakening. Until now, I can't even recognize all the characters in this world. I am semi-illiterate, the farm I worked hard to manage, the harvest has nothing to do with my family. All will be taken away by the company regularly, and some food for survival will be left as a gift. If it weren't for my parents' stable jobs, they would have 300 units of willpower every month to subsidize the family. It would be difficult to support the family even if I, my third brother, my sister-in-law, and my younger brother worked day and night. Not to mention accumulating some equipment and supplies for the Day of Awakening. In addition, parents have to find ways to continuously improve their own cannon fodder weight, and use various means to get them out of the company's cannon fodder conscription. After turning 18, I will also be included in this sequence, and I will also have to find ways to continuously improve this weight, unless a good thing like the third brother happens. Under the invisible thread of life, the degree of this involution has already broken through the sky. Looking into the distance, a gray wall of gray fog blocks the entire periphery. The gray fog is extremely thick and keeps rolling. It seems that various black shadows can be seen flashing in the fog. There is a layer of faint hazy green light blocking these gray fogs outside. Looking back, you can see the towering mottled walls of the inner city. The walls seem to be made up of various materials, with various metal and concrete structures. There are traces of filling and repair everywhere. Various gun towers and machine gun towers can also be seen on the walls. Through the walls, you can vaguely see some towering buildings in the inner city, exaggerated neon signs flashing, and the top floors of the buildings that are also full of splicing. It has some of the style and sense of technology of the 21st century architecture in my memory, and also has a contrast in the garbage dump. Looking up again, you can see a giant city base floating in the sky. The blue light that blocks the gray fog seems to be descending from this floating city, protecting the earth below. Under the base of the magnificent floating city, there are pipelines with oily surfaces connecting the inner city and the outer city, transporting various materials to the bigwigs in the city. The floating city, the inner city, the outer city and the outer gray fog are clearly separated, representing several completely different living environments. Looking back at his own home, the shabby farm hut mainly made of asbestos boards, metal plates and compressed plates, with a small amount of bricks, and the outer farm that does not belong to him but needs to be taken care of by himself. Tao Yu also felt a sense of depression. On the roof, there is a rough machine gun turret with a little rust and smell of oil, which creaks and turns from time to time. This autonomous machine gun turret is the most valuable and expensive thing in the house. It can distinguish gray fog monsters at a short distance and automatically attack. It is a kind of will-strengthening item, but not every household has it. Although the outer city is also under the protection of the floating city civilization fire, there are still some monsters attacking in the gray fog occasionally. Tao Yu remembers that he can hear the roar of the autonomous machine gun turret 7 or 8 times every night. This is the frequency of monsters that come to the farm after passing the outer night watchman and all other possible interception towers along the way. Fortunately, only some small fish will leave the gray fog and enter the shelter of the civilization fire. The wool lamp defends against some invisible dirt, and the machine gun turret physically defends against some fish that slip through the net. This is one of the reasons why they can survive safely all these years. Just when Tao Yu was a little dazed, there was a creaking sound in the house again. A thin man with wrinkles on his face and gray hair, and a woman with an ordinary face and short hair also came out of the room one after another. They are Tao Yu's parents in this life. His parents sheltered him from such a bad environment until he was 18 years old. Although he had some trance of memory fusion due to the dream of his previous life, he still smiled when he saw the two elders. "Dad, Mom, didn't you come back at noon?" Tao Long saw his son, and the wrinkles on his face squeezed out a kind smile. Why did the seventh child get up? Although the survival rate on the awakening day has increased, we must still conserve our energy and go all out. The eldest and the second child both died on the awakening day, which made Tao Long and his wife have some PTSD for this day with a 60% survival rate, so the following children are well prepared. They would rather live a simple life on weekdays, but they must accumulate enough things for the children to use on the awakening day. At least since the second child had an accident, there has been no such tragedy on the awakening day. I can't sleep. Tao Yu responded directly. Sometimes the more you force yourself to sleep, the more you can't sleep. There is no way to do this. Then you come with us. After hearing this, Father Tao no longer insisted, but made arrangements casually. We found your uncle who at the base before. He is now an instructor. He can take charge of your group with just a greeting. Let's go visit him together. The company has its own gathering place in the Abyss Rift, where many production and combat occupations are located. Although Tao Yu's parents had just returned from their room, in fact they had just returned from another world, a world where time was completely synchronized with this one, in addition to the mandatory half-month survival adaptation period on the Day of Awakening. Everyone who has passed the Day of Awakening can travel back and forth between the two places after meditating for about a quarter of an hour. At that time, in addition to the need to go to the Abyss Rift regularly to avoid going crazy, the minimum return interval will also be reduced to 5 days. If we can reach the gathering place, apart from the cannon fodder tasks assigned by the company, the pressure of survival will actually be reduced. Uncle Tiger has become an instructor. I remember that his hand seemed to be broken and he quit the battle sequence, right? Tao Yu was a little surprised. Although Tao Hu and Tao Long sounded like two brothers, they were just cousins. Under the pressure of such a miserable life in the outer city, names were usually very random, and duplicate names were also common. He was lucky enough to meet a noble person, completed the mechanization transformation, and his strength increased instead of decreasing. There was a trace of envy in Tao Long's eyes. His third child was also very talented, but unfortunately he didn't have such a life, otherwise it would be no harm to work for a noble person. Okay, let's go there, he should have just returned. Hong Xia took out a large piece of bacon from the kitchen, cleaned a few dark areas with a brush, and then walked out. Looking at the piece of bacon, Tao Yu, who was so skinny, also swallowed his saliva. What a sin, there are really people in this world who can't afford meat. Recalling the delicacies of the previous life, even though the family conditions in the previous life were average, as an only child, at least he had complete freedom of meat. As a result, in this world, he had to improve his food before he could eat meat. This is even considered a decent living condition in the outer city. Tao Yu didn't have any objections to visiting rich relatives, and he didn't have the inexplicable arrogance of a time traveler. After living in this world for 18 years, any anger had to be smoothed away. My parents are veterans who have lived in this kind of world for decades, so at least now it's not wrong to listen to their advice. Moreover, Tao Yu also has a good impression of Uncle Tao Hu. He has the talent of prejudgment, I see, and has a strong ability to predict. This ability is much stronger than dynamic vision, of the same level. The strength value of C level is comparable to that of B level, dynamic vision. He used to be the best among his relatives, but he quit fighting due to injury. He has also moved around a bit in recent years, so the relationship is pretty good. Before the other party was injured, he had taught his third brother, and after he was injured, he had also helped his family, so they both helped each other. This relationship is closer than that of several other direct uncles and aunts. Tao Yu's own shooting practice was all done through his relationship, which saved a lot of bullet consumption. For Tao Yu, who lived in a peaceful time in her previous life, the survival rate for this Day of Awakening was only 60%, so naturally the more prepared she was, the better. The survival rate of 60% does not mean that everyone has a 60% chance of surviving, but that it will be averaged out by those who are well prepared and have a high survival rate. Tao Yu does not want to be among the average numbers. Huh, Brother Long, look why you are so polite. Ayu is so thin. He needs to eat more meat to replenish his strength. Uncle Hu was a dark-skinned, stocky and lean man. When Tao Yu saw him again, his original broken arm had been replaced by a punk-style robotic arm, which even damaged half of his left shoulder. Completely mechanized, however, although the mechanical arm was filled with the smell of engine oil and was shiny with oil, some traces of wear could still be seen. Judging from the time of replacement, it should be considered second-hand or above, but the body shape was more suitable for Tao Hu. Putting away the bacon, Uncle Hu pinched Tao Yu's shoulder with his mechanical arm full of the smell of engine oil, and then said, "Some people wake up every day. It's not a big problem if I say hello and transfer to today. Having said this, Uncle Hu paused for a moment, and then continued. But I heard that the children of two big figures are also attending today, so I still have to say something in advance. Chapter 3 Talent. You are listening at NovelsReturning. On a square, in front of an old statue, more than 200 young people with different expressions gathered here. They are all turning 18 today, and they are also young people who have awakened their talents today. There are more than 200 young people, all wearing various attires at this time, and even though the styles are different, everyone is carrying a large backpack, and many of them also have various firearms, weapons, and ammunition hanging on their bodies. Many people are even wearing cotton-padded jackets in this sultry weather, and they don't take them off even though their foreheads are covered with sweat. The style of the painting looks extremely strange. At this time, Uncle Hu was standing in front of the statue, waving his mechanical prosthetic limb full of power and mechanical sense, saying something righteously. From the moment you were born, you owe the company a huge debt. The air you breathe, the soil you live in, and the food you eat are all gifts from the company. The fact that you can survive until now is also a gift from the company's protection. And now the company will give you another chance to change your destiny. Listening to Uncle Tiger's poisonous chicken soup in the audience, wearing a cotton-padded jacket and carrying a 20-kilogram backpack and an assault rifle similar to an AK, Tao Yu couldn't help but show a dead-eyed expression. Although I knew this was Uncle Tiger's job, I never expected that such a level of poisonous chicken soup could be force-fed. The most important thing is that judging from the excited expressions of some people next to me, someone might actually drink it. The more than 200 people present all have their 18th birthdays today. They are truly peers, born on the same day, same year, same month, and same age. Tao Yu, who had come with Uncle Hu, had already begun to understand that most of the 200 people were out-of-town bastards like him. In the outer city, a small number of them joined the security force and served as various small bosses in the outer city. They were the children of people with fighting talents. We can probably see some differences in equipment. Tao Yu, who owns an old assault rifle, is considered to be at the middle level. There are even worse peers who hold shotguns, soil guns, and even sharpened steel pipes that don't even have guns. Then there were 6 or 7 peers from the inner city, clearly standing on the other side, heavily armed combat uniforms, various equipment such as military backpacks, body armor or full body armor, and even the appearance of 3 people with mechanical prosthetics completely distinguished them. In addition, there is a man and a woman standing behind Uncle Tiger with indifferent expressions, which is even more special. Not only did they not join the team, but they also wore tight-fitting combat uniforms that looked full of technology at first glance. They were somewhat similar to the black combat uniforms in Slaughter City. Compared to a group of people wearing cotton-padded jackets, they were really the difference is huge. Judging from their equally handsome looks and birthdays on the same day, they should be a pair of twins from a big shot in the floating city. In addition, today is also a lucky day for you idiots. The only big man you have the chance to meet in your life appears in front of you. After entering the abyss, try your best to find Master Sun and Miss Sunday. Any little bit they can find will be enough for your life. You must obey their orders unconditionally in your actions. Do you understand? Uncle Hu emphasized in a roaring voice. Clear, that the people below also felt quite excited. Indeed, as Uncle Hu said, they might have the opportunity to see such a big shot once in their lives. Even the disciples in the inner city were the same. Tao Yu, however, was not interested in this, mainly because Uncle Hu had specifically told them before that he should avoid them as much as possible during the mission and not get close to them. Although it is possible to gain real benefits by following them, the risk is too great. The innate talents of the children of such big men are definitely not weak. Moreover, the young master and the eldest daughter have had nutritional solutions and various skills training since childhood. Coupled with the equipment on their bodies and the initial willpower given by their families, it can be said that they have surpassed the level at birth. Someone else's end. When ordinary people are seeking to survive, these 2 people must be seeking greater benefits, so there will be an urgent need for cannon fodder on hand to test various dangers. The rewards can be great, but the risks are even greater. No matter how great the benefits are, you have to survive to get them. The same goes for the heavily armed guys in the inner city. The benefits for them may not be as great as those two, but the risks are also considerable, so they should be avoided as much as possible. On the contrary, some of the disciples of small bosses in the outer city can try to contact them. Uncle Hu said hello to a few people he had friendship with, not to mention helping, but he could still do it by hugging each other for warmth. First of all, you must first reflect your own value before you can be accepted equally. If you are not strong enough, you must also recognize your position. There is no love for no reason in this world, even if it is Uncle Tiger. It is the friendship between the two families that has helped each other for so many years. If it weren't for the period when he was crippled and entered a trough, even if his family could rely on family ties, it would be just a vassal. Okay, the time is coming, and you already know what you need to know, but I still have to emphasize again that the main purpose of this half-month is to survive. The will of the world will usually place you in a safer fragment at the beginning, and then find the company's gathering place through the radio station. Only those who can successfully reach the gathering place are qualified to survive in the abyss. After saying that, Uncle Tiger also raised his hand, and at the same time, a blue flame of nothingness seemed to appear under the base of the floating city in the sky. A beam of light instantly burst out from the flames and hit the statue whose face could no longer be seen. The next moment, a ray of light covered the square, and all the young people who turned 18 today disappeared instantly. But as the light disappeared, Uncle Hu, who was originally smiling, looked back at the statue and his expression froze instantly. I saw a layer of faint blue light on the statue whose face was originally blurred, and then the blue light gradually gathered into a new small light ball and was absorbed by the statue. This made Uncle Hu quickly take out a walkie-talkie from his body and said with cold sweat on his forehead, "Captain Sichuan. This transmission has abnormal fluctuations and failed to complete the regional binding. New coordinates appear, that everyone will automatically accept the gift when they turn 18. In theory, it is the same wherever they are. The reason why they all gather here is to use the fire of civilization to complete the regional anchoring so that this group of newcomers will not be too far away from the company gathering place. But the current transmission feedback shows that there is a problem. There are endless world fragments in the Abyss Rift. A slight deviation may cross countless fragments. If you rely on shuttling in the Abyss alone, you may never reach the gathering place in your lifetime. Although this kind of thing does not happen often, it has happened several times before. Some ordinary outer city mud legs, even with a few inner city children, will be deviated. They will survive on their own, but this time, there are 2 children of big figures from the floating city, which is different. However, the transmission has been completed, which cannot be changed. It only records the coordinates of the abnormal area. Newcomers can choose to anchor near that area in the future. The severe dizziness made Tao Yu want to vomit. In addition to the stuffiness from the cotton jacket on his body, he had no time to check the gift of the world's will when he landed. Instead, he quickly pulled out a small caliber pistol with one hand, and quickly put down the package and began to take off his cotton jacket. The reason why I came here wearing a cotton coat is that although this kind of regional delivery anchors the approximate range, the fragments in the abyss change rapidly and it is very likely to be dropped into a cold glacier area. If you go there with thin clothes, you may freeze directly without even having the chance to put on clothes. Although it is also a probability event, you dare not gamble. It is much easier to take off the cotton coat now, throwing the cotton coat on the ground, wearing a set of cowhide armor made by my mother, putting the pistol into the holster on the chest, putting on the AK-like rifle that has lost some paint but is shiny, and then skillfully putting the bayonet on the front. Tao Yu also began to look at the surrounding environment. The light is a little dim, but a ray of sunlight still shines through the gaps between the branches and leaves above. The dirt and decayed smell at the tip of the nose, the thick trees around, the soft rotten leaves on the ground and the coiled roots all indicate the environment of the rainforest here. The vision has obviously improved significantly. It should be a talent problem. It seems not bad. All kinds of survival knowledge familiar to me in the past 18 years appeared. In addition to the wish-powered creatures in various world fragments, the biggest enemy of the rainforest is actually poisonous insects. He quickly began to tighten his cuffs and trouser legs, and at the same time took out the bamboo hat with a veil from his backpack and put it on. Tao Yu also took out a bottle of potion and began to apply it on several key positions. After doing all this, he held the gun and kept alert while checking his own changes. The world will has passed some relevant information into his mind in a non-textual but immediately understandable way, which made Tao Yu fall into a stagnation after concentrating and examining it. Damn it. Talent 1, Dynamic Vision, very happy face, has very strong dynamic vision, and can more easily learn some visual and perception-related skills, slightly increase agility and reaction. There is no doubt that this is a talent inherited from parents, and it is also the talent that this body should have. This is already quite good. After concentrating, you can feel the light ball of this talent and the information that is understood like instinct, but this is nothing compared to the dazzling golden talent 2 next to it. This world may have multiple talents, and it may even be possible to improve or even increase talents, but that has nothing to do with ordinary people. But now Tao Yu has a second talent. Talent 2, Divinity, Max++, an outer god from the void. Known ability 1, 1 certificate, forever certificate. Any improvement obtained through practice will not decay, and any injury can be completely restored by absorbing willpower or eating. Abilities that need to be improved through practice and willpower, similar to the heavenly demon disintegration method, which can only accelerate the recovery of injuries afterwards, and cannot solidify the ability card bug. Known ability 2, Mental Immunity, ignore any influence and attack from the mental and soul side. Known ability 3, Deification, strengthen the existing abilities and talents by consuming willpower. When using the enhanced version of the ability, additional physical strength and energy will be consumed according to the strength of the ability. Chapter 4, Strengthening the Power of Will. You are listening at NovelsReturning. Take off. Tao Yu felt the transformation deep in his soul, felt the inexplicable feeling, and felt a strong sense of excitement in his heart. The world in front of him became clearer, and the enhanced vision was directly reflected, and I have never heard of the talent of divinity. Not to mention the strange level of Max++, I have never heard of it either. It feels like a mess. However, Tao Yu had some vague guesses about the description of the outer god from the void. Perhaps it was related to his own crossing. Looking at the 3 known abilities of divinity alone, it seems that none of them can increase combat ability immediately, but it represents unlimited potential. The gift of the will of this world does not have any data and solidification ability. The abilities gained by everyone through practice will decline with long-term non-training. It just has the accelerated strengthening of willpower, which can maintain a stability under proper practice and consumption, but Tao Yu will never have to think about this again. Any injury can be recovered through willpower and eating, which is also a magical skill. Tao Yu has 2 disabled people, his third brother and uncle who, by his side. His parents also have a lot of pain accumulated over the years, but these are not a problem for him at all. The second, Mental Immunity, is also simple in meaning, but the overbearing prefix of ignore any is enough to show its terrible potential. The stronger you are, the stronger you will be. Tao Yu has not yet had a specific concept of the last, apotheosis, but he can vaguely feel the greatness of it. Willpower, a kind of power that is spread throughout the fragments of the worlds in the Abyss Rift. It is usually concentrated on various willpower creatures and items. After killing the willpower creatures, some of the wreckage will contain the willpower left behind, and some wreckage may even carry some knowledge, skills, or incomplete information. The same is true for some willpower items, and sometimes they have various special functions. For example, the autonomous machine gun turret on the roof of the house is an enhanced willpower item that can automatically retrieve nearby gray fog monsters for attack. And the willpower itself is more like a training accelerator for the strengthening of individuals, usually the limit of practice that one can reach. For example, physical exercise, through the acceleration of willpower, has the opportunity to make an ordinary person reach the peak of the human body in all aspects, and sprinting, weightlifting, and endurance can reach the limit of the human body. But if there is no other talent and skill blessing, this is the upper limit, and this upper limit will drop rapidly with a long period of non-practice. Usually, it is necessary to maintain sufficient practice and even a certain amount of willpower consumption to maintain the state. The same is true for various skills, such as firearms, fighting skills, etc. If you get new skills and knowledge through the remains of willpower creatures, or learn a certain skill from some characters in the world fragments, you can also use willpower to accelerate, and at certain critical moments, you can break through the bottleneck by consuming willpower in large quantities according to your own qualifications and skill difficulty. The consumption of willpower is closely related to your own strength foundation, talent, skill difficulty, and training methods. Individuals with combat talents can train their specialties and consume much less willpower, and the stronger the strength, the greater the acceleration consumption. It can be said that willpower is very important, but it is not omnipotent. It brings more accumulation of quantitative changes. Now, through the ability of deification, can we use the power of will to complete the qualitative change of ability? This made Tao Yu's heart excited. After taking a deep breath and calming down, he opened the backpack again and took out a canvas bag from it. When he took it out, he could hear the crisp sound of collision inside, which seemed to be some metal. After opening it, you can see some shiny metal crystals inside. This is the currency that carries the power of will. It is a gift that parents extract from their accumulated power of will and give to some special metals. It is something that can only be used after the awakening of talent, and it is also the greatest gift that parents can give on the day of awakening. There is no fixed panel for the awakening of talent. It is more like a kind of consciousness, and the amount of willpower does not have a fixed counting unit, but everyone can give a definition that is convenient for recording through their own will, according to the experience of parents and the general definition of transactions with the company. These willpower can be regarded as 1,000 units of willpower based on the total income of parents every month. It can complete the practice of 100 times acceleration of ordinary people in 10 hours, or 20 times acceleration of ordinary people in 100 hours. As personal abilities or skills improve, the consumption of willpower is getting bigger and bigger. At the same time, if you want to complete a more efficient acceleration in the short term, the consumption will also continue to increase, and the cost-effectiveness will become lower and lower. These two acceleration modes are the two that Tao Yu's parents have explored and are relatively suitable for the day of awakening. Although the first one is not as cost-effective as the latter, it can greatly reduce the time cost on the day of awakening, which is full of dangers. It takes a day to complete high-intensity exercises and quickly obtain targeted ability improvement according to the different fragment environments. If this acceleration effect is compressed to 1 hour, it may only be able to obtain a 500-fold speed increase, which is not suitable for Tao Yu's current use. The better the acceleration effect, the exponential increase in consumption. In addition, the speed of willpower consumption will increase again after the strength is improved. In the future, even those big figures may not be able to afford it. There are limits and thresholds for the improvement of willpower. The closer to the limit, the more serious the marginal effect, but now Tao Yu has a new choice, which is to directly deify his existing talents or skills to make them complete qualitative changes. Although it seems that the physical energy consumption of skills will also increase synchronously, it is definitely worth it for me who can recover through eating. Well, willpower can also speed up the recovery of status, and it is likely to be more efficient, but it is currently directly excluded by Tao Yu, a poor guy. After making the decision to use it, Tao Yu also began to examine his other existing skills that appeared with the awakening of talents. They are all hard practice in the past 18 years, and they are more intuitively reflected after the awakening of talents. To perceive those skill light balls can vaguely bring out some enlightenment. Skills: basic shooting, LV1, basic combat, LV2, basic weapon, LV2, basic breathing, LV1, basic herb identification, LV1, basic trap making, LV1. There are a lot of miscellaneous skills, but they are not refined. They are mainly for survival. Among them, the 4 that are most related to their own combat effectiveness may be basic shooting, basic combat, basic weapon, and basic breathing. The literal meanings are easy to understand. If you use the power of will to strengthen the practice, even if you don't complete the level upgrade, you will have a significant improvement in proficiency and increase some related physical fitness. The level logo is just a convenient induction, just a standard within the company, and the gap between these levels is not the kind of qualitative change that breaks through the level. Everything is natural. The gap is large, but not so exaggerated. LV1 and LV2 can be regarded as ordinary amateur players and top amateur players, and LV3 is a professional athlete. The first three levels can be said to be accelerated by willpower, but LV4, which is almost equivalent to Olympic athletes, needs to start looking at talent. Even without talent, you can still stack them up, but it will be a waste of time. And the decay rate will be very fast, and maintenance is also very hard. LV5 represents the limits of various human bodies, and the range of proficiency within LV5 is also quite different, which is about the difference between 9.8 seconds and 9 seconds for 100 meters. Tao Yu didn't learn about the skill levels after that. His father relied on Eagle Eye to get a basic shooting LV4, and maybe he could reach LV5, but he couldn't afford the maintenance consumption, which is also the norm for ordinary people in the outer city, including the quota division of willpower. As long as Tao Yu wants, he can design strange units by himself and directly design his ability level to LV99. But the upper limit will naturally increase simultaneously, but with deification, he can't choose to increase the proficiency of these skills that he has practiced for many years. In the end, Tao Yu focused on his talent, dynamic vision, very happy face, and basic breathing method. LV1, dynamic vision, is his innate talent, and its importance is beyond doubt. The basic breathing method is a relatively impressive skill in the outer city. Not everyone can learn it. Tao Yu barely got started with the constant guidance and teaching of his disabled third brother. Although it is not a high-end thing like internal skills, and it cannot even break the boundaries of the human body, but it can increase endurance to a certain extent and reduce the speed of body decay, reduce the intensity of maintenance exercises, and increase the efficiency of physical exercise. It is also one of the most advanced skills that Tao Yu has mastered. According to the information feedback from his own concentration, it takes about 800 units of willpower to deify. Dynamic vision, basic breathing method, consumes about 140, basic shooting, basic combat, basic weapons, are all between 80 and 100, which is not enough for further strengthening, but you can also use basic trap making as a supplement, or leave some for accelerated strengthening, as well as emergency measures for your own injury recovery. After a rough plan, Tao Yu began to do it one by one, step by step, and the first one was naturally dynamic vision. As Tao Yu concentrated his mind, he first absorbed 1,000 units of willpower from the metals into his body, and then began to focus on dynamic vision. The next moment, the light ball representing the dynamic vision talent seemed to change significantly, as if it also brought out strands of golden light, and Tao Yu's vision, which was originally clearer because of dynamic vision, became brighter. Even in the dim rainforest, he could see all the information and details as clearly as in the daytime, including the texture of the trees, crawling insects, and pythons hanging on the treetops. Just the passive vision enhancement has been a great harvest. There was just a little more dizziness from wearing glasses, but it seemed to be quickly calmed down, perhaps due to the adaptation brought by mental immunity. As he concentrated his mind, the new ability after the deification came into view: dynamic vision. Deification. Under normal circumstances, it has extremely strong dynamic vision, which can be greatly enhanced under the consumption of high mental concentration. It can see the trajectory of mosquito wings and bullet trajectory. It consumes a lot of extra physical strength to temporarily increase explosive power and reflex speed. Insufficient physical strength may cause strain. The skill descriptions are all transformed into information that Tao Yu can understand by non-textual means. Receiving this abnormal and terrifying increase, Tao Yu immediately felt the blood plasma pumping in his heart. This is too exaggerated. How can this be called dynamic vision? This is clearly bullet time. Almost as Tao Yu said fuck in his heart, his talent information also turned into changes and transformations after understanding talent, bullet time, max. What made Tao Yu most excited was that he found that the talent, bullet time, could be further strengthened. After just concentrating his mind to perceive it, he immediately poured a basin of cold water on him. The consumption of this second deification is far more than the multiple increase of the willpower acceleration, and the consumption of the first deification of his ability is still within the acceptable range. But the information feedback that the second deification requires at least hundreds of thousands of willpower units still makes him understand that this is not something that can be completed in the short term. Actually, it's nothing. Now, bullet time, is completely enough. If it is really strengthened again, I am afraid that my physical strength and energy consumption will not last for a second. It doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter. Tao Yu comforted himself for a while, but there was always a sour feeling of not being able to eat grapes. However, he was not completely comforting himself. Now as a little Karami, the active consumption of bullet time might be enough. If it is strengthened again, it may really only be a passive ability. Chapter 5 Physical Changes. You are listening at NovelsReturning. Crack. Because the branches were still a little damp, not only was the smoke bigger, but there were also some crackling sounds when burning. Strings of snake meat were strung on branches and placed on the fire to roast, and the air was filled with the aroma of meat. The snake meat that had just been put on could still clearly see the wriggling of white parasites, but it soon turned into protein under the high temperature of the flame. Tao Yu started to put new skewers of meat on while also biting a string of already roasted ones. Although only some salt was sprinkled on it, it was still full of oil. He had been sitting here eating for more than 4 hours, and a python that was 3 or 4 meters long and weighed more than 50 kilograms had been eaten by him for most of it. The reason for all this was the successful deification of the basic breathing method, and the use of the remaining dozens of units of willpower as accelerated nutrient consumption. Skills are ultimately inferior to talents. Although deification consumes less willpower, the effect is obviously not as amazing as talent. But talent enhances potential more. The stronger I am, the stronger my talent is, and the immediacy of skills is stronger. After showing off another string of snake meat, Tao Yu felt the fullness of his stomach and was thinking about how to get a digestion skill in the future. The speed of eating and digestion limits his energy intake to a certain extent, and he only has the ability to recover, but his current physique is not immune to diseases, bacteria and parasites. Basic breathing method. The statement before deification is to increase the effect of exercise to a certain extent, accelerate the recovery of physical strength to a certain extent, increase endurance to a certain extent, reduce the degradation of the body to a certain extent, and increase the upper limit of the human body to a very small extent. It is moderate and peaceful, well-behaved, and has no outstanding features, but it is indeed a high-quality skill that ordinary people in the outer city can get. After spending more than 100 wishes to deify it, Tao Yu also perfunctorily added a word of change. Basic breathing method change, LV1, can communicate with one's own qi and blood to increase the training effect, can consume qi and blood to increase explosive power, can consume qi and blood to increase endurance, and can increase the upper limit of the human body to a certain extent. The basic breathing method that Tao Yu mastered before was mainly a breathing technique, and it was very strict to practice and required someone to guide. If a person practices blindly, it may cause lung damage. After practicing proficiently, it is mainly some changes in breathing, and there is no mysterious internal force, qi, or other special induction. After all, it is just a skill that everyone in their family can master, and it can be used in the outer city. It is considered rare, but it is not a powerful thing in itself. The basic breathing method of the family of combat talent is standard, but after completing the deification, the control feeling of the body like a little mouse wandering and the blood boiling clearly represents the qualitative change of this skill. Although there is no effect such as the release of blood, every time the blood wanders, Tao Yu can feel the slight change in his body. Even if the degree of change is not large, with the blessing of the ability of one certificate, forever certificate, this will only go up, not down. At least before reaching the limit of basic breathing method modified, the efficiency of training is far higher than that of ordinary people. It is precisely because of this feeling that Tao Yu's plan to deify basic trap production was temporarily thrown aside. His thin body is absolutely my biggest shortcoming, is that I need to survive in this rainforest environment for 15 days, so a healthy body is essential. Gym exercises are also most effective in the first month. Correcting some postures and cultivating some habits can increase personal bench press and other parameters. Now this, basic breathing method modified, is naturally the same, so taking advantage of the best window period when basic breathing method modified was just started, when the efficiency was the highest, Tao Yu decisively used the remaining willpower to complete the accelerated practice of the breathing method, because there were only about 60 units of willpower left, and another 100 times acceleration might take half an hour, which was not suitable, so he extended the time to 5 hours and adjusted the multiplier to about 20 times. At the same time, the last 10 units of willpower were left for emergency use, in case I was really injured or sick and had no time to eat. In Tao Yu's perception, the cost-effectiveness of willpower used to restore physical strength and injuries was extremely low. 10 units of willpower was roughly equivalent to eating 2 bites of meat. The higher the strength, the greater the consumption of willpower recovery. It was very tasteless and could not be used normally. However, no matter how many points there were here, it was more or less a comfort. Under normal practice, a person can't practice 24 hours a day. It also takes a lot of time to recover and rest. The 5 hours of 20 times acceleration is almost equivalent to a month of high-intensity practice, but in the same way, Tao Yu also felt the effect of deification, that increased consumption. Fortunately, he was lucky enough to find a python hanging on a tree with his extraordinary eyesight. Otherwise, all the compressed dry food in his backpack would have been eaten up after this intensive practice. Not bad, it just increased physical consumption, and the consumption of willpower acceleration did not increase much, but the training effect was too good, and the acceleration effect of the last hour was about 30% lower. Feeling the gradual fading of the willpower acceleration effect, Tao Yu also stood up and punched a set of punches on the spot. The heavy feeling of the surging blood made his bones creak. After a set, his whole body was refreshed and he felt a few pounds lighter, but in fact, he almost showed off half of a python weighing more than 50 kilograms, and drank several liters of water, but the amount of excretion was far from enough. His body was obviously stronger, and the weight loss was all an illusion brought by the improvement of physical fitness. If I was a malnourished young man before, then now at least I can reach the physical level of amateur sports enthusiasts, and it is still the kind of all-round. The acceleration effect of the same willpower consumption in the last hour is reduced, which can be regarded as a standard certification. I have become stronger. Relying on the consumption of qi and blood bursts by breathing methods, the ultimate explosive power can be even higher. I will definitely be left behind by Bolt in the 100 meters, but I should be able to catch up with him and beat him to tears within 10,000 meters. Awesome. After stretching his muscles and bones, feeling the changes in physical fitness, the experience brought by the healthy body made Tao Yu a little unable to stop. Whether in the past life or this life, he has never felt such a healthy and strong body. Fitness can make people addicted. This is probably not empty talk. Tao Yu picked up the black metal kettle next to him, which was not completely cold yet, and drank the slightly bitter tree hole water. Then he went to the tree hole next to him to fill the kettle, and then threw it on the fire to heat it up and boil it. At the same time, he used his cotton-padded jacket that he no longer needed to tear off the lining strips and used them to pack the remaining roasted snake meat. Although there was not much snake meat left, he did not want to waste it. In addition to the weight of spare bullets, most of the supplies he carried were some survival items and food. In fact, relying on these foods alone, if he was frugal and reduced exercise, he could barely survive for 15 days, at least he could hold on for a breath. However, the place where the abyss entered would not change. It was meaningless to hide here and wait for the end of the awakening day. Not to mention the dangers that might be encountered in the rainforest. If he successfully returned, he would still come here next time. Would he carry another bag of food to survive? So after eating and drinking enough and completing the initial strengthening, he also needed to consider the next path. Although the company is very bad and the degree of blessings is far beyond the previous life, for now, I still have to find a place to provide shelter for my little arms and legs. Potential is potential, strength is strength. Tao Yu, who has lived 2 lives, has not yet expanded to the point where he can't recognize himself. After packing all the snake meat and boiling the kettle next to him, Tao Yu had the energy and time to look through the bloated receiver on his wrist. The green LED screen is full of pixel style, but this thing can receive radio station signals. With the knowledge of the previous life, Tao Yu knew that long-wave radio can be reflected by the ionosphere to form sky waves, but it is obvious that it is hard to say whether this thing exists in this place full of broken worlds. It's just that the strange blessing of some wish equipment can make the radio station at the company's station have an extremely long range of influence. which is also a matter of course, crossing, abyss, and world will are all here, what else is impossible to appear? Should I still have to climb up the tree? Looking at the adjusted channel without a signal display, Tao Yu patted the bloated receiver with his hand, and muttered in his heart, there were dense rainforests all around, so it was normal to be affected. He looked up and looked around. With his extraordinary eyesight, Tao Yu easily found the most suitable tree nearby to climb. He left the things where they were, and then threw some branches into the fire. Tao Yu quickly came to the target tree with a gun on his back. Weapons must not be left at any time. This is what his parents have repeatedly told him. Looking at the rough texture of the bark in front of him, Tao Yu was also a little eager to try. It was time to show off his powerful body. Chapter 6 Familiar Fragments. You are listening at NovelsReturning. Damn, this tree is so hard to climb. Sitting on a solid branch on the treetop, Tao Yu gasped slightly. I don't know what kind of tree this is. Before, I saw it on the ground and in the rainforest. It was so tall that I didn't feel anything. I climbed it and found that it was as high as several floors. In addition, carrying a gun and magazine weighing more than 10 kilograms, it really took a lot of effort, that is, basic breathing method modified, made up for my physical fitness. If it were me before, I probably wouldn't be able to climb up. Physical fitness is indeed my shortcoming, but this time when climbing the tree, Tao Yu discovered another new advantage of himself. It should be the blessing brought by, one certificate, permanent certificate. Even if he felt a little tired and his physical strength was obviously consumed, his strength, reaction and many other abilities did not decrease at all. It was sore, but it didn't affect him. This weird contrast really made him a little uncomfortable. It's a pity that the feeling of fatigue and soreness cannot be offset by mental immunity, otherwise it would be a bug. Come to think of it, soreness and fatigue are just a reminder from the body. It would be bad if it could be blocked by mental immunity. Sitting on a tree branch, hooking the trunk with one hand to prevent himself from falling, Tao Yu finally saw a little signal prompt when he looked at the receiver with some bark debris on his hand. This made him feel relieved. The bands were already adjusted, the company's public frequency band. He stood up and raised his hand high, letting his wrist swing left and right after passing the tree canopy, and finally heard the voice in the receiver. There is another radio band here, but there is no breath of willpower. It is most likely the radio station owned by the world fragment itself. We try to gather there. I will update the broadcast information at 12 noon every day, and the information will be repeated until 6 p.m. Hearing this cold and indifferent voice, Tao Yu was slightly stunned. What's going on? But soon the voice finished speaking and began to repeat mechanically again. It should be set up to record and repeat the broadcast like a repeater. I regret to inform everyone in Xingyao City that we should have encountered a rare spacetime anomaly and failed to complete the binding with the company's resident area. Our props did not receive any signal from the company. The opening thunder struck, and the person who spoke was probably the twin brother and sister from the floating city. As big men born in Rome, it is normal for them to have all kinds of rare props in their hands, and it is also natural for them to be able to directly send telegrams to notify all other members nearby, and if the high-end goods in their hands cannot receive information from the company's resident, it can only mean that their judgment is true. Spacetime anomaly. It's a pitfall. Why would I encounter such a low-probability event? Immediately, Tao Yu thought of his divinity. Is there a possibility that this is caused by himself? Then he threw all these complaints behind his mind and began to continue listening to the news on the radio silently. According to the Sun family siblings, the distance from here to the company's resident is at least 100,000 kilometers, which is at least 2 or 3 circumferences of the Earth's equator. Even if we calculate it by the shortest distance, there may be multiple world fragments in the middle. Given the danger and variability of the abyss, this distance is a natural chasm, not to mention that it is very likely to be farther and there are more world fragments. So there is no need to think about finding a company station to get shelter. If they really have the ability to cross such a long distance, then what kind of shelter do they need? The only benefit of this shitty company is gone. Shit, but there is another good news. They received a broadcast from another radio station, which contained some incomprehensible language. In addition, they judged that there was no signal to strengthen the breath of will. so that radio station is likely to be the radio station of the native creatures in the world fragments, although it is not a gathering place for other foreign companies, organizations, and races. It may be the natives of the world fragments, but at least there may be a place to rest. The radio station means that there may be its own civilization, and perhaps we can contact it. It may not be possible to understand the language directly from a distance, but after meeting the natives, we can use willpower to translate the meaning in person. This is one of the gifts of the world's will, which allows pioneers to walk conveniently in various realms. It is said that some spiritual masters do not need willpower, and they have the skills to complete communication. At that time, the place with the radio station can build a new gathering place faster with the basic foundation. You are unfortunate to encounter time and space anomalies, but it is also your luck to come here with us. With us as the core, we will build a new company gathering place, and you will all become the elders of the gathering place. At the end of the familiar chicken soup encouragement, Tao Yu also had some new understanding of the current situation, but at this time, Tao Yu felt a slight tremor in the trunk. This tree is very thick, but the height is here. After Tao Yu almost climbed to the top, he was still very sensitive to vibrations. With the help of the height to look around, although many of the surrounding views were blocked by branches and leaves, Tao Yu still felt the branches in the jungle shaking. Judging from the amplitude and frequency of the shaking, it seems that something big is coming. No, it's not just a big thing, it's a long thing, a big and long thing. Then the next moment, in Tao Yu's wide eyes, a huge snake head poked out from the corner covered by the woods. The snake head the size of a water tank completely subverted the normal body size of snakes. Normal snakes, no matter how long they are not actually that thick. The one that Tao Yu ate was 3 or 4 meters long, but it was only more than 50 kilograms. The weight of a 7 or 8 meter giant snake is about the same as that of an adult. It is not impossible for 2 skilled adults to catch a 7 or 8 meter giant python with their bare hands. Tao Yu directly cut the python twice with his bayonet and it became his meal, but this snake head the size of a water tank completely subverted Tao Yu's cognition and brought a speechless sense of oppression. At the same time, Tao Yu quickly found some film and television memories of his previous life in his mind. It seems that he has seen similar film and television works. Yes, it is a snake of that size. This time made Tao Yu feel strange. The abyss swallowed many worlds, with a large number of world fragments, and the first to bear the brunt is the embodiment of various fantasy worlds. After the world he was in was invaded by the abyss, he learned from some fragments that many world fragments were various stories and myths circulated in this world. However, over the years, many stories have been destroyed with various controls, and Tao Yu can only get some limited information from his parents. But whether through language or other aspects, Tao Yu can conclude that this is not the earth, and all the stories have nothing to do with the earth. Even his divinity, outer god certification is considered to be the will of the world, but why did something similar to the earth's film and television works appear here? A coincidence of the same legend? Or is it a world fragment from the earth that appeared under the anomaly of time and space? This means, the earth has also begun to be swallowed by the abyss. With the memory and accumulation of his previous life, Tao Yu has no shortage of imagination and association, and he has also made some vague guesses and inferences. Even the anomaly of time and space may be related to this, and to himself. Then the next moment, he saw that the giant python might be attracted by the snake meat and swallowed his package and the sundries next to it in one gulp. Damn you! Thought throwing aside his speculation, Tao Yu sat firmly on the tree branch without any fear, raised his AK-like rifle, aimed at the giant python, and then pulled the trigger. The bullet's lethality to carbon-based creatures made Tao Yu not care about the twisted giant python at all. As long as he could hit the vital point, it would die. With my poor eyesight, can I still let you escape? The giant python quickly shrank in pain, and instantly left Tao Yu's shooting field of vision with the package and roasted snake meat that it had swallowed, leaving Tao Yu, who was sitting on the tree branch, speechless. I clearly aimed at the head. I never expected that my eyes and hands would keep up, but the quality of the gun could not keep up. This trajectory is too elegant. Chapter 7 Gunshots. You are listening at NovelsReturning. Hey, my parents didn't know that I would have a chance to shoot from a distance. Tao Yu slid down from the tree, looking at the fire that was extinguished by the giant python's twisting, and some messy debris next to it. He had to concentrate and start looking for useful items that were still left. It's not that his parents don't pay attention to the quality of the guns, but in this environment where survival is the priority, there is almost no burst shooting at this distance. The first choice for long-distance threats is to dodge, rather than shoot to create noise. This AK-like gun is powerful and has a low failure rate. Although it may not be as good as a spray gun at close range, it is quite good in the hands of Tao Yu, who has a basic knowledge of guns. It's just that he himself didn't expect that there would be a situation of shooting while riding on a branch. Fortunately, the kettle was thrown on the fire to roast. Although the metal kettle was a little deformed, it was still usable, but apart from the kettle, the only things left were the equipment on his body. The cowhide armor made by my mother had a certain degree of defense. It also had a holster for a small caliber pistol and 2 fully loaded magazines of 30 rounds. There is also a multi-purpose dagger with a flint hanging on the outside of the thigh, as well as this N-hand assault rifle with a graceful trajectory and 2 fragmentation grenades. Looking around, Tao Yu's current dynamic vision and reaction, he doesn't have to worry too much about sneak attacks. For protection, the places where the world will is thrown on the Day of Awakening are usually some low-risk areas. According to some experience of parents, third brother, sister-in-law, and Uncle Tiger. In fact, most of the time on the Day of Awakening, weapons may not even be used. The main problem is the environment and survival. Dangers outside the environment may come from some wild beasts, such as jackals, tigers, leopards, bears, and some poisonous insects and snakes. Theoretically, the giant python is still a beast, but it is already a bit over the standard. I hope there are no more over the standard. Tao Yu's eyes flickered. If it is really the world fragments of the movie in his memory, then these giant pythons themselves must be regarded as creatures of will. Although as a mortal body, the will reserve may not be much, but for Tao Yu now, having more than 10 or 20 points is a very good harvest. The 1,000 units of willpower at the beginning were gifts from their parents. They had to save up at least 3 or 4 months of salary without any expenses. Although they both had relatively low-risk jobs, they were old hands who had been in the business for decades. The two of them could only earn 10 units of willpower a day. Tao Yu would not look down on the giant python just because he spent 1,000 units of willpower at the beginning. It was good to get willpower income during the standard novice adaptation period of the Day of Awakening, and if it was the world fragment that he estimated, then these giant pythons might also be related to another kind of willpower item, the blood orchid. Willpower items can not only be directly absorbed as willpower, but they may also have various functions. The blood orchid looks good. Maybe he can even eat it directly. First, make sure that he can't go to the company's gathering place. Not only in the past half-month, but also for a period of time in the future, he may need to play wilderness survival in this rainforest. These giant pythons, which are huge, responsive, and far stronger than normal snakes, are more dangerous than ordinary beasts, but they also bring corresponding benefits. I fired 3 shots on the tree before, and I still have 87 bullets and 17 small caliber pistol bullets left with the spare magazine. Maybe I can try to convert these ammunition into corresponding benefits before they run out. I don't know where the 2 guys in the floating city are. They shouldn't be in the rainforest. They are probably far away from the place with the radio station they mentioned. I still focus on collecting resources to improve myself. It is the top priority to turn potential into strength as soon as possible. I will stay in the outer city after I go back. In the control range of this damn company, only strength is the best right to speak. Looking down at the bloodstain left by the giant python after it was shot, and the direction where the bloodstain extended, Tao Yu took a deep breath and then began to move in that direction. Big snake, here I come. You must spit out twice as much as you have eaten me. An hour later, looking up at the dimming light between the leaves, Tao Yu couldn't help but frown. Although his enhanced vision was not affected, the rainforest at night was obviously more dangerous. The previous practice of basic breathing method modified, and the fragmented time were delayed until the evening. You can still run so fast after being shot. After all, it was in the rainforest, and Tao Yu couldn't run away. He followed the blood trail of the snake all the way. Even for this kind of giant python, gunshot wounds are not so easy to heal. Tao Yu kept following so closely to see if this thing would lose too much blood and get stuck on the road. He didn't want to give up easily after chasing it until now, looking at a drop of sticky blood on the fallen leaves on the ground in front of him, and the snake path left by the other party. Tao Yu also looked around. The darkening rainforest occasionally made some noises and strange sounds, and the environment became more and more gloomy as the light dimmed. Chase for another half an hour. If you haven't caught up yet, you have to make a fire and rest. Although Tao Yu's vision is very strong now and he is not afraid of not being able to see clearly, he is not prepared to be careless. He walked to the side of a tree trunk and cut the bark with a bayonet. Then he tore off a piece of loose bark with his bare hands, and found a few fat white worms from it, stuffing them into his already bulging pockets. The good thing about the rainforest is that there is food everywhere. These are all high-quality proteins. They can be eaten after a fire is made. In fact, it can be eaten raw, but his body is not immune to diseases now. If he gets diarrhea, he will be in trouble. Although diarrhea will not affect his strength, and he can recover by eating, it will also waste energy and time. There is no need to take risks, but at this time, there was a faint sound of gunfire, which made Tao Yu slightly stunned. Then he realized that it might be that he had bumped into the same batch of people. After all, although the anchoring failed when they were teleported together, the distance between them might not be too far. There is also a small chance of encountering some characters from this world fragment, but the possibility is still small in an environment like the rainforest. The entry of this world fragment is quite random, and it is not possible to throw it at the time when the plot is unfolding. After thinking about it, Tao Yu still slowly groped towards the direction of the gunshot, first to see who they are and then make a targeted decision. In any case, in an environment like the rainforest, it is also good to have people who can temporarily team up with each other to keep watch and ensure rest. The mental fatigue is not a simple question of recovery or not. However, as Uncle Hu suggested, if you encounter those people in the inner city and the twins, you still have to think more about it. In fact, the current situation has deviated greatly from the original estimate. If it is the twins, they want to establish a new gathering place now, and they are short of manpower. If you really can't avoid it, just say that you are at the level of dynamic vision, max. It is likely that you will be temporarily recruited as a talent. Valuable talents will be used, and the greater the value, the greater the bargaining chip. Temporarily adjusting the plan to deal with different situations is the best choice. Divinity is something that must be kept to himself, and bullet time is definitely not something that can't be revealed, but dynamic vision is not something that can't be exposed. After all, even if this ability is at the max level, it is very likely that it can't be compared to the talent inherited by the twins, but from the information heard in the previous broadcast, they are most likely not in the jungle, so it shouldn't be them. Chapter 8 Hunting Time. You are listening at NovelsReturning. In the rainforest, a man wearing leather armor, with acne on his face and a sturdy body, kept roaring at a tall and thin boy holding a steel pipe in front of him. That is a creature of willpower. It just slipped away from us. Why don't you go up and stop it? What's the point of me bringing you with me? Although this sturdy acne man is the same age as the tall and thin boy in front, his physique is obviously much stronger, which means that his daily meals are still good. He is wearing a leather armor similar to Tao Yu, and has an assault rifle in his hand. It is obvious that his equipment is much better than the tall and thin boy in front who only has a sharpened steel pipe and wears ordinary clothes. In the face of his companion's scolding, the tall and thin boy did not dare to refute, but just listened silently beside him. After Lu Wen vented his frustration in words, he looked at Zhang Wei's honest and unspeakable appearance, and he felt a little relieved. Because of the poor awakening talent, he has always been very angry in his heart, and just now he took the opportunity to vent. Lu Wen was able to grow so strong in such an environment in the outer city, and his equipment was also good. In fact, his family conditions were still very good. His father had a combat talent of sharpness, C, and served in the security team. His brother and sister's talents were not bad either, and they were more or less related to combat, but he never expected that he would awaken a useless talent of sensitivity, D. This talent seemed to him to be a complete negative improvement, and it would actually amplify his many senses. The pain, itching, stuffiness and other feelings would be amplified, which was simply a torture in the rainforest. And he also felt a sense of darkness about the future. This talent did not mean that there was no employment and development direction at all, but most of them were in auxiliary directions such as drug testing and skill testing. Although the income might not be very bad, the environment was quite bad. If he did not participate in this kind of work, even if he tried his best to have children, he would probably be in the cannon fodder sequence in middle age. On the contrary, the mud leg in front of him, who had no parents, said that he actually had a talent of endurance, E+. Although it is not that strong, it is at least helpful for the combat side, and the training effect and upper limit of that guy's physical fitness will be stronger than that of ordinary people in the future. After returning from the awakening day, the company will definitely be willing to give some resources to cultivate him. Being without a father or a mother may become the motivation for some people to want to be caged by their subordinates. As long as he works hard, the other party may never enter the cannon fodder sequence for life. Obviously, the two of them are still focusing on themselves now, but their future will not be as good as each other in the future. This makes Lu Wen feel bitter and helpless. If it weren't for this damn rainforest environment that requires someone to take care of each other and keep watch, he really has an urge to shoot the other party. Anyway, it is normal for people to die on the awakening day, not to mention such equipment. Why are you still standing there? Chase, do you want me to go in front? Lu Wen scolded the stunned Zhang Wei, and the latter also responded with a muffled "oh," and then slowly walked towards the direction where the giant snake escaped with the steel pipe. Zhang Wei, whose parents died and whose aunt raised him as a pendant for cannon fodder weight points, has been able to recognize his status and environment since he was a child. He has no chance to learn any skills, and it is difficult for him to survive in such a rainforest without others, especially with this abnormal giant python. Although he is afraid now, he still trembles and pushes aside the grass and walks forward along the winding snake path. The cold steel pipe in his hand can't bring him any sense of security. That is, he awakened a talent of endurance, D+, which brought him a good physical blessing. Even if he didn't have any willpower to strengthen his body, this talent alone made his physical fitness much stronger. Before, he wanted to show his value and didn't want to attract jealousy, so he reported an E+. The result seemed to stimulate this temporary partner. The other party might not have awakened the combat talent. He was really afraid that the other party would shoot him from behind. However, in this kind of rainforest environment, everyone regards saving their lives as the top priority. A follower who listens to him and takes risks, and can also watch over each other at night, should be more valuable to be alive. Zhang Wei did not think of looking for an opportunity to sneak attack Lu Wen and then loot, because he had no gun practice at all, and other survival skills were also very few. If he was really alone, even with a gun in hand, I am afraid the danger would be greater. Survive. This is the ultimate goal he set for the day of his awakening. Now that he has a good talent, he can sell himself for a good price when he goes back. This is the darkness before dawn. Must survive. And at this time, he found that the snake path in front seemed to have suddenly turned. Following the crushed branches and leaves, it squeezed and turned to the side. When he changed direction and continued to look along the snake path, he suddenly found that the snake path in front turned again. Looking at the twisted and broken branches along the way, Zhang Wei looked up along the traces and found that the opponent's traces climbed up the giant tree and went to the back. Swallowing his saliva and looking back slowly, Zhang Wei saw a snake head as big as a water tank, covered in blood, slowly descending from above silently. The huge snake body that curled up seemed to be like a highly compressed spring, containing terrifying explosive power, and had appeared a few meters behind Lu Wen. Be careful. Behind you. Zhang Wei issued a shrill reminder, not only to save Lu Wen, but also to save himself. While roaring, he also howled strangely, waving the steel pipe in his hand and constantly making various movements to attract the attention of the giant python. He knew clearly that the gun in Lu Wen's hand was a huge killer against this thing. If the giant python could turn around and look for himself who was farther away, then Lu Wen would have the opportunity to shoot it. It's not that he has the fearless spirit of self-sacrifice, but he must do this. Originally, because of the talent of sensitivity, Lu Wen always felt itchy on his body, and his mind was somewhat distracted. He was also smart when he heard Zhang Wei's roar. After all, he had a lot of targeted practice before coming in. Before he turned around, he raised the muzzle of the gun and pulled the trigger. While shooting sparks, it turned its body, it tried to scare off the possible attacks in this way and by some time. However, since the giant python turned around and began to ambush from behind, it was obviously aware of the threat of the target. At first, it slowly approached and was just lurking. Now that it was discovered, the slightly curled snake muscles suddenly burst out, and the compressed force was completely released and ejected. The huge snake head avoided the opponent's shooting by biting sideways, and bit Lu Wen into its mouth. The creaking sound of bones breaking also shows the terrifying bite force of the giant python. The powerful impact instantly crushed Lu Wen's bones and squeezed his internal organs. If it were an ordinary person, this instantaneous injury would not be painful, but Lu Wen had the talent of sensitivity, and he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. This scream seemed to be the battle song of the giant python, which made it open its mouth again and lightly throw the rag doll-like body, and bite it again with more force. The gunshots and screams stopped abruptly, and then the snake moved its mouth to move the body from the horizontal side to a more convenient direction, swallowing it at a speed far exceeding that of normal snakes. If it is a normal snake, it will have no desire to attack when swallowing food, and may even spit out the food when it encounters danger, but this giant python is obviously different. While swallowing Lu Wen's body whole, the snake head as big as a water tank looked at Zhang Wei, who was halfway through holding the steel pipe and rushing towards this side quickly. This made the stiff Zhang Wei look desperate, and he could only hold the steel pipe in his hand tightly and retreat to lean his body against a thick tree trunk, use the tail of the steel pipe to press on the tree trunk, and then stare at the giant python that is winding and swimming. After Lu Wen died, he couldn't run away by running alone. The speed and agility of this giant python are obviously better than traditional snakes. The last chance is to fight to the death. Come on, beast! The desire to survive overcame fear and despair. He finally awakened his long-cherished fighting talent. He couldn't die here. The giant snake had begun to curl up its upper body again, as if a compressed spring could explode at any time. But at this moment, blood flowers suddenly burst out from the huge snake head, and at the same time, the sound of da-da-da came from not far away. The powerful bullets of the assault rifle all hit the head accurately, and many of them went directly through the eyes, almost instantly making the giant python lose its ability to resist. The primitive nervous system of snakes made the brain a hornet's nest, and the huge snake body was still swinging violently. The strong force crushed a large number of branches, and the tree that was hugged by several people was shaken by the powerful force. The terrifying explosive power and the primitive savage power seemed to be telling the power of this jungle overlord. Unfortunately, the giant snake, which was still a mortal body, could not survive after its head was hit like a hornet's nest. Although the snake's body was still swinging unconsciously as its head fell to the ground, it should still be dead. Can you please go and see if it's dead? I'll be in the back to support it. Tao Yu pushed aside the bushes next to him and walked out, smiling politely at Zhang Wei. He had vaguely heard Lu Wen's scolding before, and later he watched from the side with his extraordinary eyesight. Because he had suffered from the ballistics before, he did not take the risk when the giant python attacked Lu Wen, and directly came to the range to ensure that the ballistics would not fly around again before starting to fire. The effect was not bad, and the tall and thin guy in front of him, according to the previous preliminary judgment, it is not bad to form a team temporarily in the short term. The other party obviously knows his own position very well and is very sensible. He would speak up to remind and take the risk to attract the attention of the giant snake, which also shows that he has a full understanding of the current situation. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Please support me. Zhang Wei looked at Tao Yu, who was like a heavenly soldier who came down to earth to save him, and his face was also a little excited. Zhang Wei, who survived, was also alert when he heard Tao Yu's words. Then, while thanking Tao Yu profusely, he controlled his trembling legs and walked towards the giant python. He poked the giant python's head with a steel pipe to make sure it was dead. Chapter 9, Adjustment. You are listening at NovelsReturning. After wiping the mucus on the magazines with leaves, Tao Yu inserted the 3 newly harvested magazines into the slots on the chest of the leather armor. Although the dead guy should have absorbed all the wish items he brought, some magazines were still replenished from his body to make up for the loss of his own package being eaten. This giant python was not the one he injured. There was only Lu Wen's body in his body, and there was no package of his own. In addition, you can also feel that the willpower of the giant python's body after death was concentrated on a tooth in its mouth. Tao Yu dug out the tooth and absorbed it, and obtained about 15 units of willing power, as well as some mixed information about predators. Because of the mental immunity, Tao Yu would not be affected by some messy information at all, and he was vaguely aware of it in his heart. If there continues to be similar completion information about killing big snakes, you may be able to get 1 or 2 complete related skills. It should be in the latent and explosive categories. The quality of his skills may be average, but for Tao Yu, he doesn't dislike it because he has deification. Looking back at Zhang Wei, who was handling the giant python carcass quickly, cutting the snake meat piece by piece and throwing it on the fire to bake, Tao Yu wiped the pistol he got from Lu Wen and said, "How are your firearms skills?" Lu Wen's assault rifle was damaged by the python's bite, but he still had a pistol that could be used. After hearing Tao Yu's words, Zhang Wei, who was cutting the python meat with blood dripping from his hands, looked up and showed an embarrassed smile. I haven't practiced." Upon hearing this, Tao Yu immediately gave up the idea of lending the extra pistol to the other party. Don't look at how easy it seems to use a firearm. For someone who has never used it before, it is quite troublesome and may even endanger themselves. Then he inserted the pistol into the holster of his other thigh. After absorbing the giant python's teeth and obtaining the fragmentary information, Tao Yu still wanted to continue hunting these giant pythons. Arming Zhang Wei at this time is actually a positive effect, but since he doesn't have firearm skills, he can't waste bullets to practice with him. Looking down at the heavily cut python meat, Tao Yu also reminded him, "That's enough, you'll have to carry this meat when the time comes." "Oh, okay." Zhang Wei looked at the wasted python carcass with some reluctance, but he still honestly began to roll the cut snake meat and bake it on the fire. In the outer city, the prices at several designated places that sell supplies are quite expensive. It takes 2 units to buy 1 pound of meat, but the price they paid for it was 5 pounds to 1 unit, so in fact, most of the time the meat brought back from the abyss is digested by oneself, or some exchanges between relatives. Although there are also private sales, if you catch it, your cannon fodder points will be cleared immediately. It rarely happens unless you are desperate. Similarly, the same goes for food. Since everyone can carry limited supplies to and from the abyss, it can be said that the company has kept the daily necessities of everyone in the outer city at a certain threshold and tightly controlled them by adjusting the prices of daily necessities. By the time Zhang Wei simply roasted the snake meat and stuffed it into his backpack, the sky was completely dark. The dark night in the rainforest is a real dark forest, with heavy shadows of trees all around, and the flames of the fire jumping like a group of demons dancing. But even so, with such a big and smelly snake corpse next to him, Tao Yu still urged Zhang Wei to get ready to go. It's not safe to stay here for a long time. I injured a giant snake before, not this one. It might be nearby. Okay. It's time to rest, but you need to change your place, otherwise, not only the giant snake, but also all kinds of troubles may be caused. Even if you can deal with it, you will not be able to have a good rest. Zhang Wei is also aware of this. After making a few simple torches using resin and branches, he walked ahead with a torch in one hand and a steel pipe in the other. What is your awakened talent? Combat type. Tao Yu looked at Zhang Wei's tall and thin body. He had gone through so much before and even dissected a large snake. Now he was still carrying about 20 kilograms of snake meat and still had good physical strength. He also asked, the other party doesn't have the characteristic of 1 certificate, lasting certificate, so it can only remain normal if the upper limit of physical strength is high enough. Brother Tao, my awakened talent is endurance, E+. Just leave this strength work to me. As long as you can hold the battle from behind, I don't want anything. I just want to follow you back alive. Zhang Wei walked in front and said in a flattering tone. After hearing what the other party said, Tao Yu could probably understand why the other party was so humble. Because of his fighting talent, as long as he can return alive this time, he can complete a certain level improvement. With this kind of hope and expectation, what he said is not polite. On the day of awakening, people in the outer city are usually looking for survival, so even if they have killed a giant python, it is considered a good gain. In comparison, Zhang Wei sold himself after returning, and the price and income were much higher. Endurance, E+, is a standard ox-horse talent. Its combat help is higher than Eagle Eye, and it is similar to Dynamic Vision. At the same level, it is considered a standard ordinary combat talent. It's not a problem to get a stable job similar to that of your parents, or even better. However, it is hard to say whether the opponent's skill level is E+, and there may be some water in it. Very good, I have Dynamic Vision, B, I can see the road clearly at night, and we have some complementarity, but I plan to continue hunting these giant snakes. Are you sure you want to follow me? Tao Yu also estimated that he revealed a talent to give the other party some confidence. If he met the twins, he might reveal Dynamic Vision, Max, to increase his value, but now, as long as he can suppress Zhang Wei, there is no need to show off too much. B-level combat talent. Brother Tao, you are really awesome. Don't worry, as long as you can hold the line, I will cooperate with you. Zhang Wei was both flattering and really surprised. Although Dynamic Vision is just an ordinary combat talent, the height of B-level can still allow the other party to easily enter the security team, right? Maybe if he works hard, he will have a chance to enter the inner city. That's something he dared not even think about, then he said awkwardly. Well, actually my talent is D+ level. When I teamed up with others before, he seemed a little jealous. Since there is no need to worry about jealousy, Zhang Wei should also expand his value. Zhang Wei had no idea about the gains on the Day of Awakening, he himself did not have any valuable skills, and he relied on his talent to support him. To put it bluntly, now he can only do radio gymnastics to improve his physical fitness with his willpower, which is both wasteful and inefficient. Anyway, there is already Endurance, D+, to ensure the lower limit, so why not give the limited willpower to the thigh to improve strength? Yes, the stronger the strength, the better. I want things related to willpower. If you perform well, I can bring you snake meat and Lu Wen's pistol afterwards. Tao Yu also made a small promise, the things carried between the two places are limited in terms of volume and weight. So the house is full of things that are pieced together, the weight is based on the amount of weight that a person can carry without being affected. The other party has Endurance, D+, and should have the opportunity to carry 50 kilograms of weight back in the last wave, plus an ordinary pistol worth about 100 willpower. This is a pretty good harvest for Zhang Wei. Tao Yu's parents together may have gained this much in half a month. In fact, it's okay not to give, but setting a goal can better mobilize the other party's initiative. Thank you, thank you. I will definitely work hard. Zhang Wei obviously mobilized some enthusiasm and seemed a little excited. He didn't have a very outstanding talent. Even if he went back and sold himself, he would just be a hard laborer. It's just that life is much better than before. This kind of harvest is enough for him to take risks. Besides, this big brother has the talent of Dynamic Vision, B, and he obviously has a basic grasp of firearms. He is super accurate. This giant snake looks dangerous, but it is also within the acceptable range. Chapter 10 Trouble. You are listening at NovelsReturning. Zitzi. The current sound coming from the background microwave radiation of the abyss kept ringing in the receiver. Tao Yu stood on the branched branch and hugged the trunk with one hand. He kept raising his hand and swaying back and forth. He soon received today's updated broadcast information. Zizi, that kind of wish power creature is good at lurking, is fast, and has high explosive power. It is a great threat to you. Perhaps it is because of the abnormality of time and space that such a difficult wish power creature has appeared, so now try your best to start group gatherings in advance. Those in the inner city must do a good job in organizing. Each person should bring at least 5 people from the outer city with him at the same time. If you bring more people, you will be rewarded. New intelligence information appeared along the broadcast, and it was still the same voice as yesterday. After listening to one round, I also started to listen to the previous replay to complete the content. I have reunited with my sister in one day, and I have also met 2 contemporaries, and we have discovered that the location we are in should be the junction of 2 world fragments. Our side is an endless grassland. We use annual ring sunshine to determine things. There is a rainforest to the west of us. If someone in the rainforest finds a way to head east and enter the grassland first, we will light some smoke along the way as a mark. It goes without saying that the two twins from the inner city were equipped with equipment. They should also have a way of locating and communicating with each other. They completed the rendezvous in one day and also found two scattered contemporaries. If it was a normal mission, the two scattered at the same time were actually not lucky and might be used as cannon fodder for some testing. But this time they encountered a change in time and space, and they may be temporarily short of manpower and may also care about the number of available manpower. Their plans can be seen from the orders given to those in the inner city through the radio. No matter what their purpose was, at least the measures they took could be regarded as helping a group of people in the outer city who generally had low abilities. As expected, they are not in the rainforest, but on a grassland, to the east. Tao Yu also murmured in her heart, he was going to hunt the giant snake. He would first complete the two skill information, and then see if he could find the blood orchid. He was not in a hurry to go to the gathering. Surviving in the wild in a place like this is stressful. Moreover, the two guys from the floating city are here. Next time I come here, they may bring something to deal with the problem at hand. After returning, I will still live in the outer city, so the final direction of progress is indeed to move closer to them. Tao Yu knew that he had potential, but the twins in the floating city definitely had a crushing advantage in terms of willingness and skills. Coupled with that gorgeous set of equipment, my strength is definitely still inferior to theirs now or even for a long time. It is a good choice to temporarily form a safe foothold with them as the core. This time the information also revealed that there is a kind of dexterous willing creature on the grassland where they are located that is a great threat to novices. Tao Yu made some guesses in his mind, but he couldn't come up with a reason. There was still too little information. This also shows once again that the help given to novices by World Will on the Day of Awakening is not omnipotent. After all, the abyss is an endless ending place that can swallow many worlds, and it cannot be judged based on inherent experience. After receiving today's information, Tao Yu also stood on the tree and looked around, briefly assessing the surrounding safety environment, and then looked down at Zhang Wei, who was handling the snake corpses and equipment. There is actually a pretty good little follower here. He can do all the dirty work without any complaints. Even if he walks ahead carrying snake meat that smells like blood, he is still a human target to a certain extent. This was a newly killed snake in the morning. It happened to be the one that ate Tao Yu's backpack and turned the backpack out of its stomach. Now Zhang Wei is completing the cleaning of some useful materials. There were more and more bullets fired, and monsters and equipment exploded, which made Tao Yu feel a little speechless. Precisely because of the increasingly abundant ammunition, Tao Yu became more and more confident in finding the blood orchid and completing the information on the giant python skills. The place is so big that it is possible that the blood orchid cannot be found, but it should still be possible to complete the information by hunting the giant python. Away. Okay, it's time to leave. Tao Yu came down from the tree and landed next to Zhang Wei. Okay, brother Tao, here are the cleaned bullets. Well done. Tao Yu patted Zhang Wei on the shoulder and put the bullet in his backpack. Then he picked up a piece of dried snake meat sprinkled with some salt and started to bite it. Brother Tao, did you say anything on the radio? That while Zhang Wei was packing his things and getting ready to hit the road, he looked at Tao Yu expectantly. Regardless of whether he can be promoted after returning, he will still be here next time he comes to the abyss, so what he should do next is also crucial, because he and Lu Wen teamed up before. Neither of them could climb such a high tree and did not receive the broadcast information. Zhang Wei only learned about the space-time anomaly from Tao Yu during the break last night, which hit him hard. This is good news. We can determine the general direction we will go in the future. Tao Yu said briefly, which made Zhang Wei relax a little. But I decided to hunt the python first. Tao Yu glanced at Zhang Wei, not only giving Zhang Wei a choice, but also some testing. You all listen to brother Tao, I just do the work. Zhang Wei didn't have any objections because of Tao Yu's choice, and his attitude was very correct. At least that's the case on the surface. No matter what, he has to hold Tao Yu in order to survive, have an opinion. Are you eligible? On the contrary, it will increase the other party's disgust, which is completely unnecessary. Zhang Wei, who has lived carefully in his aunt's house since he was a child, has this understanding. Don't worry about spending too much time. I encountered 2 giant pythons in 2 days. You can see that the density of this thing is a little abnormal. After seeing the other party's choice, Tao Yu smiled and comforted him. The food appetite of this giant python is not low. Although there is abundant food in the rainforest, having 2 of them so close together probably means that their mating time is coming soon. Tao Yu had a deep impression of some related plots in his memory, which was the scene of a group of pythons cooperating together to form a big ball. Although there were not many such snakes, there should be quite a few nearby at this time. Tao Yu's judgment was not wrong. In the next 3 days, while updating new broadcast information every day, he also hunted 4 more giant pythons. At night, he would spend 1 or 2 units of willpower to perform basic breathing, a small amount of acceleration for law reform, although it does not consume much willpower, because the practice time is long enough and the flesh and blood are full, the effect is not bad, and you can clearly feel some improvement. What made Tao Yu a little speechless was that one of the giant pythons actually burst out of the belly of another person with the same equipment, increasing the number of ammunition again. Well, now if you are willing to spend your willpower to speed up, or spend more time practicing, you should be able to get at least 1 skill into shape. Tao Yu finished absorbing a new python tooth, and the information fragments inside were gathered together with the previous information like a puzzle, and he already had the general outline of the 2 skills. If you practice along with this information, you can master it in advance, or you can expend your willpower to accelerate it. However, he has only saved 100 units of willpower now, and Tao Yu doesn't want to waste it. It is obviously more cost-effective to wait until he absorbs 1 or 2 more skills to naturally improve them, and then, deification. Brother Tao, you are so powerful. This kind of python can hit their heads with its explosive speed. It made me stupid before. You are worthy of B-level, dynamic vision. Zhang Wei cut open the python's body and wanted to rummage through it to see if there was any new equipment. He praised it while resisting the smell of blood. This is not pure flattery. The previous one is a bit similar to the sneak attack on Lu Wen a few days ago. He wanted to sneak around and sneak attack from above, but it's a pity that Tao Yu's bullet time insight is here. The seemingly thrilling dodging and shooting are all expected, and it doesn't even allow him to enter an active state. The passive blessing solves the problem. It's nothing. In terms of strength, this giant python can throw me a few blocks away, but with a gun. Tao Yu smiled indifferently, but then his expression froze, and the surrounding branches began to shake unnaturally, just like when the giant python appeared before. The most important thing is that the movement this time is a bit loud, more than what we have encountered in the past few times. More than 1.